Bo. Baldy, how's it going?
Well, things are going well, guys. Good to be with you. Sorry about the final play of the game the other day. It's a shame, but I always say this, Zach, that going into a season, you always hope you can win 2 games because of your special teams, and you really hope that you don't lose 2 games because of your special teams. And I feel like the Broncos lost a big game because of their special teams.
Well, that's a really good point, Baldy, and a really fascinating way to look at it for the Broncos. And that is one where at the end of the season, they might be looking back saying, man, if only we had that one play back. And I want to start right there with that play, Baldy. There's been a lot of film review since that play where Alex Forsyth, as that position, just has been pushed back so many times there. So is that on him, where he shouldn't get pushed back? Is that on coaching because it's been on tape so much? Or is that just all credit to Kansas City for noticing it and exploiting it?
No, that's Dave Toub, examining, the Broncos protection schemes, and there was a weakness there and they overloaded it. It was an overload block right at it. And they didn't use it during the game. They used it when they had to, and they pulled it out and they overloaded that side. And anybody that has to block or try to handle Leo Chenal, they know how strong he is. He's just an anvil of strength, and they overpowered it. I don't know if the kick was going to get up high. It was going to make it, but I didn't still think it was like the vertical lift on the kick got up where they wanted it. But still, Chenal just overran him, and they got through. And they made the play when they had to make the play. They saved it.
It's been a tough couple of days for Alex Forsyth on social media. A lot of Broncos fans saying, like, you've got to cut him just to send a message. I'm curious just because I know that you appreciate what he did as the fill-in starter for the Broncos. Can you talk some sense into them?
Well, everybody has, like, a lot of, like, they put Quinn Miners, he's at their left guard spot. I think that it's not on Forsyth. That's just a weakness that got exposed, and he got run over. But he shouldn't be cut because of that play. There's other guys you could put in there that are bigger, stronger, maybe more stout when they get overloaded like that. And so everybody's scouting everybody's weakness in this league and trying to figure out how we can exploit it. The Chiefs did it. Give them credit to it, but at the same time, Alex, I think Forsyth has earned a spot on this team, and I wouldn't cut him. He might still be a valuable member of this team as a center right now.
Baldy, I want to keep talking about the O-line. I felt like the O-line really held up against Chris Jones last week and did a great job in protection, but it felt like they kind of missed a couple blitzes, and they had some free runners on Bo Nix. How does the O-line do a better job of diagnosing the blitzers?
I don't know if that's on the line, honestly, because that's what Spags does. He gets the free hitters, whether it's Trent McDuffie or wherever they're coming from. They're the only team in the league that plays as many 3 linebacker sets in this league right now. When they look at Bolton, who came free a couple of times, Tranquil and Chenal, like Spags just figured out a way to get 3 big, fast linebackers on the field. Most teams, they're just trying to keep 2 linebackers on the field. The Chiefs play 3, and it's hard in the run game. They figured out how to not get exposed in the passing game, and they really haven't. So I feel like Spags just, like, his overloads and his pressures, and when he calls it, he went 0 blitz on them, and the Broncos didn't pick it up, and they didn't anticipate it midfield when it came. But that's really a sign of any great pressure team, is they call it when you kind of least expect it.
Baldy, you're the ultimate football guy out there. So I want to ask you this question. Do you believe in moral victories? And if so, did the Broncos have that on Sunday, coming 2-point shot, a 35-yard field goal away from beating the Chiefs and handing them their first loss of the season?
I don't believe in it. That was a gut punch. It was on the road. It was a winnable game. They went there and won last year. I think the guys on the team felt like they played well enough to win the game. And should have won the game, and it comes down to a kick that you think should be a routine play, but it isn't, clearly. It never is. kickers miss field goals, protection schemes get picked up and get exploited. But I don't believe in a moral victory right now. I mean, I feel like the Broncos believe, especially after losing the way they did the week before in Baltimore, they knew this was going to be a tough stretch. But whether you feel like you played well enough to win, you didn't win it. You didn't get on that plane and go home a winner, and that's a horrible feeling, regardless of how it happens.
Yeah, I kind of agree with you, but now you go into another game that could be kind of tough. I mean, the Falcons have a winning record. They haven't played perfect football to this point, but I'm just curious how you see this game just in terms of overall difficulty for the Broncos. Are the Falcons a team that they should be scared of? Should this be one that at home should be maybe not an easy win, but one that you should really expect to win?
Well, I mean, the Falcons lost to the Saints. They made a change at the head coaching position, and Darren Rizzi took over. Look, I mean, I don't care what level analyst you think you are. You better study that Saints roster, because I didn't know who some of those guys were. But they picked up Marquez Valdez-Scantling. He burned him for 2 touchdowns. It was the whole difference in the game. Well, 2 touchdowns, but one play that set up a second touchdown, a 67-yard. They hit their go routes. That's all they really did. They didn't really do a whole lot more, to be honest with you. They didn't really stop Bijan Robinson or Tyler Algier. They had a ton of yards. They hit them on big plays. Now, the good thing is, Bo Nix hit Cortland Sutton against one of the better corners in the league last week. I think they're going to have to hit some big plays against the Falcons team. You got to go over the top on them like the Saints did last week, and that's how they won that game, and that's what I think you're going to have to do, because the Falcons are a good offense. Kirk Cousins is a good quarterback. They run the ball very well. You might have to find some big plays in this game to beat this team.
Baldy, we were talking about, the game plan to beating the Falcons, and we thought that it's best that they are a balanced team, at least the Denver Broncos are, and kind of starts with the running game. And Audric Estime, was the Broncos' leading rusher last week. How did you feel about his performance, and do you feel like he'll have another good one this week?
Well, I felt like we talked about how I think they're going to go to a bigger back. Last week we talked about this, and they did. And they needed, you got to kind of punish these defenses now. And there's nothing against Jaleel or Devontae, but they're smaller guys. And while they might break tackles and beat you with some quickness, they don't really pound you. And I thought that was a good move, and he played well, and he pushed the pile, and he put his head down, and I think you're going to see more of it. And I think going forward, the Broncos need a more of a power running game to kind of balance out some of the other backs that they have.
And Baldy, another thing that you talked about last week, you said, man, I don't know if anyone could have expected more from Bo Nix this season. And I agree with you. And then he goes out and arguably outplays Patrick Mahomes in Arrowhead against a great Chiefs defense. Just how impressed were you with him last week? And then just continued overall growth that he's having.
I mean, it's something to watch. I mean, it's really great, because I feel like they clearly have the quarterback of the future, and it's been 10 years since anybody in Denver Bronco land could say that, since Peyton Manning retired. And even that last year, the defense won. But, I mean, they got a quarterback. And Chicago doesn't know if they do or not right now. I mean, you go around the league and you look at some of these quarterback situations, and the Raiders firing their coordinator and the Bears firing theirs, because the quarterback isn't performing well. Well, Sean Payton's in charge of developing this quarterback. He's balanced up this offense as much as he can to stay competitive. We're seeing a lot of young guys kind of step up, Ville and some of these guys, Estime, like the rookies are out there. We know that they didn't have a lot of draft capital. They know they didn't have a lot of money to spend, but yet they're still developing their young players. I don't care where they come or how they get there. That's getting done. And they're competitive, and they're in the hunt. So I'm impressed all the way around.
I'm curious what you think of Cortland Sutton, too, because he's had, I guess he made a couple pretty big mistakes last week with the drop over the middle before halftime. There's the slant that he dropped, too, but still finishes the game, 6 catches on 9 targets, 70 yards of the touchdown. Week before, 122 yards. Week before, 100 yards. Where does Cortland Sutton stand to you? Is he a true wide receiver one? Could he be a focal point of an offense?
Well, the first thing you have to know about Cortland is the character of the guy is beyond reproach. Like the guy has just coming out of SMU, that guy is a pro, and I think he practices the right way, he prepares, all those kind of things, you have it. He just doesn't have great speed, but I think he's probably a solid number 2. Probably been pushed into that role of number 1 because of injuries and what they've had in Denver. But I think he's everybody looks at these things different. But I feel like he's a solid number 2 guy that can win, that can beat your number 2 corner. He beat the Chiefs' number 1 corner, McDuffie, last week, over the top. And, he knows how to play low post basketball when the ball's in the air. He's a big body. So you want him on your roster. I don't know the finances of it and, how you have to kind of evaluate all those things. But I'd want Courtland Sutton on my team.
Baldy, Justin Simmons is making his way back, to Denver, and he's been playing pretty well out there in Atlanta. Is he playing at a level where, Sean Payton really needs to dial up the game for him, or can Bo go out there and, do his thing and connect with Courtland, and they should have a good game plan?
They've got a good back end to their defense, but I wouldn't say that Justin Simmons is lighting it up right now. He's got 1 interception. He's defended some passes. He's a good tackler, all that kind of stuff. Him and Jesse Bates form a really good team back there. But I wouldn't say that the move that Denver made was the wrong move. They moved on. Does Bo Nix have to live in fear of Jesse Bates and Justin Simmons? I think they have combined something like 50-something interceptions, in their careers. I mean, it's ridiculous. Nobody even comes close to it. But you can't play the game in fear. I don't care who's in the back end. You've got when the opportunities present themselves to attack and be aggressive, you've got to take those shots.
Baldy, final one for you. Taking a big picture look at where the Broncos stand, they still are holding on to the final wild card spot at 5-5. We talked about this yesterday, just what team we think gives the Broncos the biggest concern to take that from, and we all decided it was the 4-6 Bengals, because on one hand you have Joe Burrow playing in an MVP level, and on the other hand, the Bengals defense is really bad. How concerned should the Broncos be about the Bengals seriously making a run here down the stretch?
Well, look, Cincinnati has lost games this year, even when they've scored 38 points, because they make mistakes. And that's what they did in both games against Baltimore, with chances to win both games. I mean, you've got to be concerned, because Joe Burrow, if he gets T. Higgins back in the lineup, they're an elite offense. But at the same time, Denver can't be looking in the rearview mirror. I mean, the Chargers are playing great football. They're the number 1 defense in football right now. They go through games without giving up touchdowns. Can they put 3 teams in from the AFC West right now? I would just be looking ahead. And if Cincinnati puts a streak of games together, I mean, you would think that Joe Burrow at an MVP level can do that. But to me, it's all about going forward and starting to stack some wins like they did a year ago about this time of the year, when I think they won 5 games in a row. They took the ball away at record levels. I would just be concerned about my performance in my game and taking care of business against Atlanta this weekend.
I love that, Baldy. Maybe next week we're talking about the start of a 5-game win streak for the Broncos. Love your analysis. Thanks so much for joining us today.
My pleasure, guys. I'll talk to you next week.